And we're joined now by criminal defense attorney Joseph Tully to talk a little bit more about this. So I want to get to a little bit of the gag order first, because the Truth Social posts obviously have been taken down right now. But the judge also wrote in his contempt ruling it would be preferable if the court could impose a fine more appropriate with the person's wealth, since we're really talking about a few $1,000s here, and that the court must consider whether in some instances jail may be a necessary punishment. Do you see that as a real possibility here?
I do see it as a real possibility, but I think the judge is trying to show restraint at this point. You know, Trump got a lot more publicity than $7,000 is worth. You know, in other words, for that $7,000 fine, he got, you know, millions of dollars worth of publicity. So the judge's point is well taken, but I think the judge is trying to show restraint, and it's a normal warning that a judge says to anybody who's facing contempt. Look, I found you in contempt. If you keep going, I will put you in jail. So I don't find that surprising. I find that to be rather run-of-the-mill. It's a comment that any judge would make in that situation.
And look, so far to this point, we've only heard from a few witnesses the prosecution has called over the course of last week and this week. One from David Pecker, who used to run AMI, who is essentially facilitating these catch and kill schemes. But also, we're starting to hear from Keith Davidson, who is the attorney for Stormy Daniels and Karen McDougal. Do you see a strategy in what the prosecution is doing here in regards to the order of witnesses that they're calling in the case that they're trying to build here?
I don't necessarily see a strategy in the order. A lot of times an order is dictated by people's schedules. You're trying to juggle different people's schedules. And as a trial attorney, to present the case to the jury, you do have a preferred order, but many times it's impossible to get that dream order that you need because you're trying to accommodate your witnesses. I do think that they are being pressed to prove each and every little thing. I don't think that the defense and prosecution are getting along. I think the defense is saying, I'm not going to stipulate to this little tiny simple fact, go out, put on a witness and prove it. And I think that's why we're going through a lot of very quick witnesses, as you pointed out earlier. So I do think that the prosecution's overall strategy is coming through, but there may not be an exact correlation with the order of the witnesses.
And as I mentioned before, coming to you, we're scheduled to get back in session in just a few minutes in courts now to pick up testimony with Keith Davidson. What are you looking for in the remainder of his testimony here?
Well, I think the prosecution is doing a slow build. The key point here isn't whether or not any of this stuff happened. It's the prosecution has to prove that Donald Trump in his mind thought this is against federal finance law. Let's do it anyway because I want to protect my election. Let's make these payments. They're against federal finance law, but I still want to do it even though it breaks the law in order to help my campaign. That's what they need to prove. So they're laying a lot of circumstantial evidence because you can't get inside somebody's head. You can't have a printout of their thoughts, but you can prove what they were thinking through circumstantial evidence. And I think they're getting closer and closer to that key point that they need to get to.
Yeah, well, we will see as that plays out. Again, when court picks back up in about 5 minutes from now, Keith Davidson expected to be back on the stand. Joseph Tully, really appreciate the perspective. Thank you for being here.